Hello there folks, Fishbat back here once again, and I'm bringing you a battle report, Kings of War 1000 points, and I am using a brand new army. Or rather, I'm using an army which I have just painted a portion of, my Kingdoms of Men, using some of the wonderful Perry's War of the Roses plastic kits, which I have had sitting in a cupboard for an embarrassingly long time. But the point is that I've got a decent number of them painted now. Enough for a 1000 point game, and I asked a friend of mine if he'd be up for a 1000 point game, to which he agreed. And he got out his Ogres, which I think when you see them you will agree are quite stunning. Let's have a look. These are the notations used for the game, so you can follow what's going on in the pictures. So let's have a look at this Ogre army then. As you can see, these are pirate-themed Ogres. We'll go through unit by unit, but you will see that every one of them has been uniquely sculpted, based, green stuffed and just done up to the nines. These are spectacular. So we've got a warrior regiment here. Moving along, we have a boomer horde and an army standard bearer with the diadem of dragonkind, which gives him the breath 10 weapon attack. And you've just got to love this. Look at that! Look at those flags the army standard bearer has. Look at the little goblin on top of the flag. I believe that's a little black scorpion figure. The pirate goblins. Oh no, sorry, we just did that one. These are, just a closer picture of some more warriors and boomers. You can see some of them have got a little goblin on his shoulder instead of a parrot. Just very, very creative in the way the ships have been made. And those units are, of course, a boomer horde, which have a warrior regiment in front of them. This cool little fellow is a red goblin bigot on a flea bag. I just love how it's being pulled along by the hammerhead shark there, and he's got the little skis under his feet. Really nice effect. And over on the left hand side, two quite scary units. Both of them are red goblin blasters. And there is the army in all its glory, and in its deployment. And my Kingdoms of Men army. I have an arquebusier troop over on my far left, a pike block horde occupying the centre with the Brew of Strength, giving them an extra crushing strength, a polearm block troop, very nice cheap little unit with crushing strength, a knight regiment with, I believe they have the Pathfinder item as well. Yes, actually they do. They've got the Pathfinder item. An army standard bearer with a banner that I painted myself. I was pretty proud of that paint job, actually. Pike block regiment, polearm block troop, and siege artillery. And so this is the board after deployment, before first turn, and we are playing a loot scenario as I mentioned, and the red dots are where the loot tokens lie. So for those of you who like to think about the way games are going to go, have a look at the way this board is set up, have a look at the composition of the armies, and make a prediction right now about how this game is going to go. I'll give you a little second to think. Alright, well let's go on and see if your predictions are matched. So, Kingdoms of Men get first turn. That's how I start the turn, but when I move up, you can see that I move fairly aggressively. Most things are just moving up directly forwards. I figure that I am going to be minced by those boomer hordes, and I want to run up, grab the loot tokens, and try to hold them as best I can. I've got my arquebusiers on the left there, and they are going to try and respond to the boomers as they approach. On the right side there, my my polearm troop is going to meet that warrior regiment, and the siege artillery in the back fires at the centre warrior regiment, gets 7 damage and wavers them, which is pretty nice for first turn. And that's how the board looks from the Ogre's perspective at the end of the first turn. Which I think the all the infantry lined up nice and even like that forms a pretty neat line to look at, in my opinion. Ogres turn 1. The Ogres form, you'll notice, a very nice semicircle for my approaching force to form into. On the left, both of the Red Goblin blasters, both advance to threaten my line. The Red Goblin Bigot advances very slightly, in range of bow shot for my polearms on the right hand. He pings off 3 bow shots, does a single point of damage, but does manage to waver them with a lucky nerve roll. Otherwise, the boomers on the right advance a little bit, and the warrior regiment on the side runs straight forward. Kingdoms of Men turn 2. This is where things are going to become decisive. Turn 2 in Kings of War is usually the decisive turn. So in the beginning of the second turn, my pike horde stays still. This is because they were staring straight into a Red Goblin Blaster, and I didn't want them to take that damage. I was going to let my arquebusiers try and handle them, and I didn't want them to be in the blast radius. In the centre, I move up my cavalry regiment to take the objective, and I move up my pike regiment at the double to threaten the Ogre boomers over there, plus I use my my polearm troop to move up a little bit as well, with the standard bearer to give support. My siege artillery fires at the warrior regiment on the right hand side there, but it misses. My arquebusiers, though, are quite successful. They shoot at the Red Goblin Blaster, only do a few points of damage, but it explodes and dies, which is good. Frees up that loot token now for my horde. So, Ogres turn 2. Let's see what they do in response. And it is quite a response. So the surviving Red Goblin Blaster charges the polearm block. When it explodes, it gets a 5-inch blast radius, which is enough to include the polearm block, the standard bearer, and the cavalry, but a fraction of an inch out to hit that Red Goblin Bigot, which is very frustrating. It does 5 hits of damage, which translates to 5 damage for the cavalry, 5 damage for the polearm block, and 2 damage to the army standard bearer, who is surprisingly resilient today. The Red Goblin Bigot runs just in front of the cavalry regiment, doesn't charge, just moves an inch in front of it, so that if the cavalry regiment survives the turn, they will not be able to charge any targets because they can only get at the little bigot in front of them. Moving further along, the warrior regiment charges the front of the pike regiment and do 3 points of damage. On the far right side of the board, the other warrior regiment charges the polearm troop, do 6 points of damage and rout them in a pretty good charge. So overall, it's been a very, very effective turn for the Ogres. But it's not done yet, because the Ogre boomers both contribute. They shoot a lot into those knights. And I forget how much damage it was, but I think it was already way over their nerve. So even with a reroll, they were well and truly routed. So you can see the state of the board. My real hammer in the knights are gone. My pike horde have no real targets in front of them and are a long way away from the fight. My artillery is about to get pounded by the warrior regiment. But I'm probably the closest to having control of the objectives at the same time. So, Kingdoms of Men turn 3. Seeing the warrior regiment approaching, I decide to turn my artillery away. They couldn't see any other targets, and they, being in direct firing, cannot shoot at a target within 1 foot. So I decide that putting them in the corner will at least mean that the Ogres will be a long way away from the fight by the time they beat the war machine. Further along, my pike horde advances up to take the objective by moving at the double. My polearm block moves forward a little bit to try and support. My pike regiment does a single point of damage to the warrior regiment, for a total of 8, given the cannon shot before, and they waver. Also, when my knights died, they dropped the loot token, and because you can drop it at the edge of your base, they dropped it right where the pike regiment could pick it up, as they did. So the pike, both of my pike units are holding objectives at this point in the game. Ogre's turn 3. So here's a zoomed in shot of what the Ogre regiment is doing. Those hearty scoundrels charging into my war machine. And here is a above sort of shot, in which you can see that they did a lot of damage to that war machine and routed it. But this result was never really in doubt. Let's see what else happened. A lot of things. Both of the boomer hordes advanced, and both of them shot at pike units. The pike unit on the right takes 8 damage for a total of 11 and wavers, which is quite a bad result. They don't want to be wavering in front of those warriors. The other pike unit, the pike horde, also takes 8 damage, but it's okay since it's so big. Worryingly though, the army standard bearer charges the polearm block that had been beside the pikes there, does 2 points of damage, bringing it up to a total of 7, and routs them, so it pivots so it's facing their flank now. Red Goblin Bigot flies through the ranks until it gets pretty close to my arquebusiers, shoots 3 arrows at it, does a single point of damage, and wavers them, so they can't even return fire. Kingdoms of Men turn 4. So not a lot I can do this turn. I've got the objectives, but the game is not in my favour at all at this point. I have my wavering pike regiment on the right, which I just shuffled to the left a little bit. There wasn't really much I could do with them, to be honest. Then with my pike horde, I rotate them so that they can at once face oncoming threats, so they'd be charging the front, and also they drop the loot token. I've got the yellow to mark the token, but I've actually dropped it just to the side there, and then the arquebusiers advance, they're 5 inches, so they can actually pick up that token. So now they are holding the loot token. Ogre's turn 4. In the intensity of the game, I forgot to take the photo for this turn, but I did record what happened with my trusty pen and paper. The boomer horde on the right shoots the pike regiment, and it flies off the board in pieces. The boomer horde on the left shoots the pike horde for 4 more damage, surprisingly low, and doing 12 total. They do rout on the first nerve roll, but they get the inspiring reroll, and they do hold. The Red Goblin Bigot charges the arquebusiers, doing 1 further damage, so they now have 2 damage, and they waver again. The Ogre Standard Bearer, since it has the Diadem of Dragonkind, uses the Breath Attack on the Kingdom of Men Standard Bearer, which does 1 damage, and the Standard Bearer wavers. So, Kingdoms of Men turn 5. Things are very dire at this point, as you can see here. I've got 1 objective and he has none, but he has almost everything left, and I have almost nothing left. So I charge with my pike horde into his army standard bearer, and do 7 points of damage, but I only waver him. I seem to be wavering a lot, but I'm not killing anything. So that's my turn 5. Ogre turn 5. He flanks with his boomers, does a tremendous amount of damage, and routs my pike horde. And that's that. I conceded at that point. There was no way I was coming back, and he was going to claim every objective in his next movement phase. So congratulations to my opponent, well done. And I hope you guys enjoyed watching the video. I would like to bring us back to the deployment. Some comments I'd like to make. Even as I was setting up, I thought that the list I was facing and the terrain that was laid out was really awful for my army. If you would look at my big old pike block, the big horde, where can I deploy that in the board? On the far left, I've got a big chunk of difficult terrain in the center, difficult terrain. On the far right, I've got blocking terrain in the house. If I go sort of center right, there's an obstacle right in the middle. The only place it can actually fit that doesn't have a blocking terrain right in front of it is where I've placed it there in the center left. Now, looking at my opponent's list, there is quite a lot of difficult terrain on this board, and he has boomers. Boomers, especially in hordes, are tremendously dangerous because, almost irrespective of terrain, they can pour tremendous fire into the one spot. 18 attacks each, with piercing 1, hitting on 4s. So, if they stick together, they can pour 32 attacks in. Tremendous damage they can just pour on. And the warrior regiments in front of them, they don't even have to fight well. All they have to do is block my approaching army so that the boomers can just keep pumping in lead. The little red goblin bigot does the exact same thing. Doesn't have to charge anything, doesn't have to attack, although it did and it was useful by wavering things. It just has to move 1 inch in front of a unit that could charge so that it can't charge next turn. The red goblin blasters have a similar function, to delay the onset of my army, and if I can't deal with them, to just explode and take out a massive amount of them. I've said this before and I'll say it again, they are tremendously good units for their points. So I felt that my opponent's list was a very, very good match for mine, and that the terrain was good for him as well, because he wasn't terribly bothered by the terrain at all, whereas it was quite a hindrance for me, I think. Now, this is not to complain, this is just to analyse, I hope. Please correct me in the comments if you disagree with me, but I'd be very interested. Can anyone looking at this game have a look at these armies and say what could have been done differently? How could the Kingdoms of Men army have won this one? Assuming fair dice, deploy in whatever fashion you like, how would Kingdoms of Men swing this game? Would you hold back and try to use the cannon and the arquebusiers, hoping that you can destroy the blasters before they arrive, and letting the ogres take the loot counters? Or would you do what I did and be aggressive, try to take those loot counters and then retreat? Or would you do something else that I haven't thought of? By all means, if you have any ideas, please let me know in the comments. Anyway, so that was just a really quick 1000-point game. I hope you all enjoyed watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.